lots of fun things to do, we make a big mistake and decide, why do I need to talk to God? I've got everything I need without spending my time praying. Besides, praying makes me nervous. What's your excuses, my brothers and sisters? What are your excuses for not praying? Are you using worldly excuses not to pray? Well, let me tell you how important prayer is. Prayer, God has given us promises that he will answer our prayers. And you know, prayer is the key that opens your day to every blessing, and it also is a lock that closes the night to keep you safe while sleeping. Mahatma Gandhi said that. You know, God gives us answer to prayers. And Psalms 91 and 15 says, he shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. When you get in trouble, calling mom, calling dad, calling police, they might get you out of trouble sometimes, and then sometimes they can't. But listen at what Psalm 91 said. It said, prayer is the key that opens the door to every blessing, and it also is a lock that closes the night to keep you safe while you sleep. And if you read Psalms 91, you'll also know that you need God in your night hour, because it talks about that noisome and pestilent. It talks about that night sleep. You need God. You need him to protect you and to keep you from trouble. So my brothers and sisters, seek him, because you know, you need God. I need God. We need God. No matter what we do, every day we need God. Luke 11:2 says we should pray that God's reputation is revealed as holy in our lives. You know, we need God. So that's the bottom line right there. And the Bible tells us again, but seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. My brothers and sisters, remember, there's a way out of your mess, and it's JESUS.
Where can you buy a brand new Nissan with a lifetime warranty? Kingston Pike. Hey, folks, Gerald Anderson with Ted Russell Nissan. You heard it right. Every new Ted Russell Nissan comes with a lifetime warranty, and that's a long, long time. Ted Russell Nissan on Kingston Pike.
Good morning and welcome to AM 1380 WYSH and Ask Your Neighbor. Ask Your Neighbor can also be heard and seen on our website, WYSHradio.com. And if you are in Anderson, Rome, or Morgan County and have Comcast cable, you can watch Ask Your Neighbor on BBB TV Channel 12. Ask Your Neighbor is the program where you call in and do just that. Ask Your Neighbor. Do you have a comment? Do you have a problem? Or do you have a question? Then call in and ask your neighbor. 865-457-1380 or toll free at 877-711-4005. And for those of you that might be listening or watching on the internet, you can email from our website, WYSHradio.com. Just click on the Contact Us button and email your questions. Now sit back and listen as listeners throughout East Tennessee and the entire world answer your questions on Ask Your Neighbor on BBB TV 12 and AM 1380 WYSH.
It is the first Tuesday of the month. No practical jokes, no April Fools. Dr. David Ayers is in here with us. Good morning, Doc. How are you this Tuesday morning?
Fine as a frog hair split three ways.
That's pretty fine.
Pretty fine.
How long have we been doing this?
It's well over 10 years, so I don't know.
It's been a while, hasn't it? I was thinking about that the other day because I can't remember when we started. But
well, I had to take disability in late 2015, and so we were doing it at least probably 5 years before that.
Yeah,
while I was still practicing, so probably at least 15 years.
It's been a while. So what is going on out there today in the world of medicine?
I thought I'd tell you this first. I play guitar a little bit better than I used to.
Okay.
And I'm a rhythm player, so I play acoustic rhythm. Well, the church was having a celebration. It's not the church I go to.
Mm-hmm.
They were having a celebration on Sunday night for their pastor. He'd been preaching 30 years.
Okay.
And so they called me and asked me to come play. They're having a special singer come in, and they asked me to come play acoustic guitar. And the bass player comes over and said, "Yeah, I listen to your radio show."
Really?
So West Virginia.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was a bit cool. It shows you the reach of the program.
Well, I had somebody message me the other day. I didn't know who they were, had never spoken to him before, and they were asking me questions about some of our program. They listen in Alabama. They've been listening for, he said, like 8 years to us in Alabama. So it's amazing. We don't really know the width.
I remember one time that guy called from Australia, remember?
Australia. We've had calls from Australia and Ireland for sure, the most recent. But, yeah, all over the place. People are listening, tuned in. I invite them to call if you've got questions. And no matter where we're at in the program, just tell Jay, and he'll let us know, and we'll stop, take your call, and try and answer your questions.
Yeah.
865-457-1380. And if you happen to be in Australia, we'll pick up the toll for the call at 877-711-4005. If you're somewhere you can hear me, that toll-free number will work. It won't cost you a dime to call in. Get the information that you need. Ask away. And we'll see if we can help you. So tell us what's new and improved.
Well, here, I was going through the mail, and my wife's going through the mail, and she had me this thing from the AMA. And here's how sneaky the AMA is. I haven't been a member of the AMA forever. And so about early in the year, you'll get this bill for dues.
Okay.
So regular medical practice, $420 a year. If you're military, it's less, and fully retired, it's even less.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is they know I haven't paid any money to them forever.
Yeah.
They think it's going to go to your office manager. Office manager will see this as a bill
And just
and
pay
send it to the That's how sneaky they are. That's just wrong.
Hang on.
Just wrong.
I think we're starting out with a question this morning.
Good.
Good morning and welcome to Ask Your Neighbor. Do you have a question for Dr. Ayers today?
Yes, I do.
All right. Well, you're live and in living color. Go ahead.
Okay, doctor, I'm glad to hear you on. This question is about the use of ivermectin.
Mm-hmm.
I have a prescription that I got from a local pharmacy that does compounding, and he does it without a prescription, and it is 12 milligrams of ivermectin.
Mm-hmm.
And he and several others have told me that it needs to be taken with hydroxychloroquine. Now, all the information I get, I have gotten it from one person who has taken it and had good results for a general bacterial respiratory infection. And I was interested because I've taken a lot of strong antibiotics over the years, like Cipro, and I don't like taking them.
Mm.
And I just wanted to know this for general information. Does it have, because my primary care doctor wouldn't just give me a prescription for hydroxychloroquine. Do they have to work together? That's my question. Do you have to use them together? And I can hang up or I can stay on.
Short answer is no. You don't have to take them together. And I don't know how many studies there are on bacterial infections with it. Maybe some. Its big strength is in single-stranded RNA viruses, which would include influenza, COVID, RSV. That's where the best use probably is. It has a whole bunch of other uses.
Yeah, I have read that those are the most popular uses for it. I guess it got attention during COVID because I used it before that for my horse, for a wormer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the answer is no, they do not have to be taken together. Is that what you said?
Right.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
You don't have to take them together. You could use either one.
Thank
either
you.
One.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
As far as, viruses, infections like that, they do the same kind of thing. There's lots of protocols out there. Like I say, the protocol I've used most often has been, it used to be under FLCCC, but I think they changed their name. That was Frontline Critical Care Consortium. And they were a bunch of ICU doctors that got together and wrote protocols. But if you put FLCCC in your search engine, it'll still come up, FLCCC Alliance. and then it's got all these protocols, and it tells you stuff. Now, there are things you can take along with the ivermectin. I mean, if you take zinc, that seems to be important. Vitamin C. So if you just look them up, they have prevention, like early outpatient treatment. They've got inpatient treatment for doctors in the hospital. They got recovery treatments for people that have that long haul COVID syndrome where they don't get better. And it's got a complete guide to the patient care. So it's FLCCC. Just put that in your search engine, and you can go to their site, and it's pretty readable, and it tells you the doses, because doses are based on weight, and you can treat yourself. And yes, there are no Ridger's a pharmacist that will compound it himself and make it up for you.
Do you recommend people taking it just as a preventative, like taking it like a vitamin daily? Or?
I don't think so. You can take it, like you can worm yourself with it, like she was worming her horses, and people get parasites. We don't ever treat other people for parasites unless they get really sick with them in the doctor's office. But I'm sure we carry around a good share of parasites. If you want to eliminate the parasites out of your body, there's protocols for that. I was reading something from World War II. It's just telling soldiers, don't go barefoot. That's a good way to get parasites. But if you get intestinal parasites, it said chew up and swallow 1.5 cigarettes, because the nicotine, it paralyzes the worms, and you poop them out. That's the way a lot of these anti-helminthic things or worm medicines work. Because for the worm to stay in your intestine, if it's not attached like a tapeworm, it has to swim upstream all the time, like roundworms have to swim upstream constantly, because they'd go out the other end. So if you take something that paralyzes the worm, and then you go to the bathroom, that's how you get rid of the worms.
Okay.
Of course, some of them kill the worms too. Ivermectin is really a wonder drug. Just say a little bit more about ivermectin, because somebody asked me about it the other day. It's not unusual that medications would have multiple effects. If you think of Motrin, you can take Motrin for pain, and it works. You can take Motrin for a fever, and it works. You can take Motrin for inflammation. It works. So it does 3 different things. Nobody questions that. But when I tell people that you can use ivermectin for cancer, and you can also use it for COVID, you can also use it for worms, it seems to drive people crazy. But thinking that the drug has only one use. It's not unusual to have multiple uses.
Good morning, and welcome to Ask Your Neighbor, the Ask the Doctor edition. Do you have a question for Dr. Ayers today?
Yes, sir.
All right, you're on.
My mother was diagnosed with sundowners, and I'm wondering if there's a difference between sundowners and dementia, and if there's a cure.
All right, you want to hang up and listen?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, dementia is a broad term. Dementia basically means memory loss. And a lot of this memory loss you see with aging is what we call short-term memory loss. So they can remember things from when they were a kid. It seems like long-term memories are placed somewhere else in your brain. But short-term memories, like what you had for breakfast, that's what gets lost in these people. Now, the most common form of dementia is Alzheimer's. And it's named after a doctor who described it. Sundowning is it's like a characteristic of some dementias. The person functions pretty good through the day, and then toward evening, they get more and more disoriented, and it's called like sundowning. There are some treatments out there now. There are some medical treatments I don't recommend. The latest drug they came out with really doesn't work and has bad side effects. Any drug before that never worked either. And they never claimed to work. If you look at the data on them, they basically said they slow the downhill
progression.
Yeah. And but it never changed the outcome. And I never noticed it slowed down the downhill progression that much. So there are new things they're trying to come up with to try to break down the. If you look at these people's brains after they've passed, they have neurofibrillary tangles and amyloid plaques. That's the two things you see. The nerves are little tangles of nerves, and there are plaques in there. Well, they've been making antibodies to the plaques. And the first one they came up with, it caused so much inflammation on the brain that sort of killed the person. But I think some of these other medicines we're talking about, ivermectin and such, if you look there, and maybe my wife who's listening probably, tell me the website, she could maybe point you to some place you could look up and see about things you might do about dementia. Yeah, but dementia is a broad term. You know, there's vascular dementia where you get multiple small strokes. If you stroke, at some point, the amount of brain that's been damaged starts to show up in symptoms. A lot of people just have Alzheimer's.
Back to ivermectin. So you don't recommend taking it just daily?
I'm saying, no, I don't think it was a preventive thing every day. I'd have to think about it and read about it, because the concern with using something every day, let's say you took, think back to penicillin. Penicillin came out in 1941, and it was so precious in those days that they took people's urine and strained it back out after they took the dose so they could use it on somebody else. And it killed everything, but now hardly kills anything. And much of that's due to overexposure. We just kept using it for everything, and next thing you know, it works hardly on nothing.
So when you're talking about using it if you want to kill parasites, how long do you use it to do that?
It depends on what protocol you're on.
Okay.
Some of them are long protocols, like 2 or 3 months, where you take doses. But you don't take ivermectin every day. There's different things you take along the course of that.
Okay, and that's all on that website, FLCCC?
No, FLCCC is mostly dealing with COVID.
Okay.
How to treat with the viruses. There's a thing called the Florida Shark Man. You just put that in, Florida Shark Man. I have no idea why he chose that name. He has protocols for the cancers, and he's got all the literature to back it up. And he's not shooting from the hip. This guy's, he doesn't go into detail what he is, but he's basically a researcher, and he's researched all this stuff, and he's got all the data to back it up, and he's come up with these protocols, and a lot of people use it for cancer. Now, using it every day wouldn't affect its ability to kill cancer, but I don't know if it's preventive kind of therapy.
Okay.
Now, some people think getting rid of parasites is preventive therapy for cancer, but the way they kill cancer has been pretty well described. It's a whole different way than it works to do other things. These are amazing medicines. The sad part about it is we've known this, evidently, looking back at the data, maybe 20, 30 years. And you think a lot of the people have died of cancers. Up in West Virginia, occasionally somebody will call my wife, and they're on hospice. It seems, in my experience, nobody will do these protocols until they get to hospice. They're going to take everything their doctor says. They're going to take all this horrible chemotherapy, which is such a horrible toxicity on the body. They want to do all that first. And then if all that fails, and the doctor says you need to go on hospice, well, then somebody wants to try ivermectin. So it's not really even a fair playing ground. These are people with very advanced cancers that their doctors have just washed their hands of. They said, they can't help you. You need to get hospice. And then they want to try this stuff. But even at that, I have like 2 or 3 people, that we know personally that have done it, and they're still here with us. Most of them still on hospice, but
they're still here.
Yeah.
Good morning. Do you have a question for Dr. Ayers this morning?
Yes, I do.
All right, go right ahead. You're on.
Okay, I'm going to spell this medication for you.
Okay.
It is VOQUEZNA.
M-A?
Huh?
N-A? N-A or M-A?
NA.
Okay, N-A. All right. Got it.
Did you get it?
I did.
Okay. My doctor had given me samples of these, and I was having heartburn all the time. Didn't matter what I eat, didn't matter what time of day it was, I had heartburn. And when he gave me those, I did not have any heartburn. But here's the kicker. My insurance will not pay for them. And they gave me a coupon, but it was only a 30-day supply. I would have paid the $800. That's how bad I need them. If it would have been a 90-day supply. So I'm wondering, does he know anybody that helps with that when your insurance denies you?
Okay.
Okay.
You want to hang up and listen?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
I guess the bigger issue is, since I'm not practicing today, but usually you should be able to contact the company that makes it. They'll have some kind of program. Like a lot of these very expensive drugs, these drugs that are $1,000 to $2,000 a month, a lot of these drug companies have programs where you might be able to get it for as low as $5 or maybe nothing at all or half price or some kind of thing. So I would contact the company that makes, how we call it, Voquinza is how it's pronounced. So it falls in the proton pump inhibitors, which would be like Prilosec. We used to use these medicines long term on people, and then bad things started to happen when you used it long term. Some people questioned, did it set you up to get a stomach cancer by suppressing the acid there? Because what it does, it makes your stomach not make acid. And it's fraught with its own difficulties. When you're having esophagitis, which sounds like you have, heartburn, because the stomach's got a protective lining, and it can handle the acid. But your swallowing tube that goes from your mouth down to your stomach, it doesn't have a protective lining. So if the acid from your stomach leaks and goes back up in your swallowing tube, it can cause a lot of heartburn. It can cause constrictions. So you go to swallow food and it won't go past because it's scarred from all the acid coming up in there. But it says you can take it up to 6 months for erosive esophagitis. That's real bad heartburn.
Okay.
You can take it 8 weeks to heal an ulcer. But I suspect if you call a company, which is Merck, I think Merck makes it.
They have some type of...
Yeah, they usually have some type of program because they know people can't afford it. They'll probably take some kind of write-off on it.
Okay. Good morning. Welcome to Ask Your Neighbor. Do you have a question for Dr. Ayers today?
I do.
All right.
Okay. It's a long process, but my mom throws up every day, okay? She went to the GI doctor. She had H. pylori. Well, they gave her antibiotics, and she still does it. Well, they retested her, and she does not have H. pylori anymore, but they cannot figure out what's going on. And during the day, up until about noon, 1, 2, she's fine. And then after she eats a late lunch, she's sick till she goes to bed. And they told her she didn't have hiatal hernia. So what could that be? And I'll hang up and listen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Well, that's a complicated issue. Interesting story. You would think there would be some weakness at the lower esophageal sphincter. So think of a sphincter as like your anus back there. It's a pucker muscle. And so at the bottom of your swallowing tube, there's a pucker muscle. Not quite as tight as your rear end, but that's the kind of thing that it is. It sort of cinches things tight, and it keeps what's in the stomach, and what's not in the stomach, not in the stomach. It helps prevent the symptoms that the last patient had. The last patient has a loose esophageal sphincter, and it's leaking acid back up into the swallowing tube. It sounds somewhat like what your mom may have, so it's easy enough for food to go one way versus the other way. I guess there could be some vagal nerve issues, but if they've looked and they can't find anything, I guess they'd have to see whether or not she was a candidate for a fundoplication. Surely they've scoped her by now. I would think they've gone down there and looked around. If they haven't, then they definitely need to do that. And somebody has to determine, is she throwing up because she has nausea and she's throwing up, or it's just leaking back up in there and she brings it up? That's the kind of questions you're going to have to find the answer to. Because the stomach's very muscular. When you eat, you can hear your stomach rumbling down there when you eat. It's called borborygmus. It's a long name. That's a stomach sound your gut makes after you've eaten, or it makes it all the time, really, if you listen with a stethoscope. It really sort of grinds the food up that you swallowed and puts in the form it can go down in your intestine. But now consider you got a leak at the top, starts grinding like that and squeezing, and stuff's going to come back up the other way, which some people may be able to bring all the way up. If it's nausea and she's throwing up, like she's just sick in her stomach and she actually throws up like you do when you get, the bad virus, then somebody's got to really investigate that. That'd be scary if that's what's happening. If it's just she's bringing stuff up, then I suspect she's got a leak at the top of her stomach. And they can fix that with a scope these days. There used to be a horrible surgery called a Nissen fundoplication, but now they can do it sort of through your belly button with, like they do gallbladders, and
Crazy.
Tighten it up. Of course, then it gets hard to burp, and so other issues involved there. But they can tighten it up if that's what's happening with a leak.
Good morning. Welcome to Ask Your Neighbor on WYSH. Do you have a question for Dr. Ayers today?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
Dr. Ayers, they have done a scope on her, and she's not nauseated. It just comes up, and everything comes up. And anything that's in her stomach, when she bends over, it comes up. Mm-hmm. But they did a scope thinking it was hiatal hernia, because everybody that we know has had hiatal hernia has done that. But see, she's not sick at her stomach. They gave her like Zofran, and they said if you're nauseated, you take that. But she's not nauseated, but she can feel it coming up.
Okay.
And I'll hang up. I'm sorry.
No, thank you. We appreciate the information.
Yeah, that helps clarify things a little bit.
Yeah.
So it sounds like she's got a leak at the top of her stomach. When you bend over, it puts pressure on your stomach. And,
yeah.
And so she might benefit from what they call a fundoplication. So what they do in the fundoplication is they take the top of the stomach and they wrap it around the bottom of the swallowing tube to make it tighter so it won't leak back up to the top. And it's not... it's not totally benign to do what she's doing because the acid from her stomach gets up in her swallowing tube. At some point, it's going to scar that and cause issues. But it sounds like... Now, let's talk about what a hiatal hernia is. A hiatus is a place where something goes through a muscle, essentially. So they have... When boy babies are in the womb, their testicles are up in their abdomen. And then sometime around birth, they drop down into the sac there at the bottom. Where that comes through the wall, that's a hiatus, and it leaves a weak spot. That's why men get ruptures or hernias, and women tend not to. So where the swallowing tube goes through the diaphragm is a muscle that's under your lungs, and it contracts when you breathe in and relaxes when you breathe out. All these, your aorta's got to go through there, your swallowing tube, everything that's above in your chest that goes to your belly has to go through that muscle. And sometimes it can get a weak spot or it can be big. And what happens sometimes the top of the stomach will pop up through there. That's a hiatal hernia. And oftentimes it's associated with reflux or stuff coming up, but not always. A lot of people have hiatal hernias. They find them by accident. But you don't have to have a hiatal hernia to have a weak sphincter. Now, things like caffeine make the sphincter even more loose. So drinking coffee or Coke, that'll make it even loose on a normal person. But if she's leaking so much she's bringing food up all the time, then that sounds like a mechanical problem. And, a surgeon should be able to fix that. So it's called a fundo, F-U-N-D-O, plication, P-L-I-C-A-T-I-O-N, fundoplication. And if it's just sounds like what she needs, it should be able to fix her.
You guys can call us at 865-457-1380 anytime during the program. If you have questions that you'd like to ask about what we're talking about, or you just got a question, any kind of medical question, Dr. Ayers will do his best to answer it for you. 865-457-1380.
So one of the things about moving down here that is difficult, which I'm still working on, and the house is back on the market and all this stuff. It's horrible to sell your house, actually. Is that you have to leave your church. And I have a good little church. It's in a difficult neighborhood in Huntington, but the people there are just wonderful, and I sort of head up the music and have a little band, and they're good. They've worked hard. We take on difficult songs, and they're able to handle them pretty fast. But they had a health fair the other day. Last Saturday, they had a health fair. And they had people from the community come in and set up booths and all that. And they did blood pressures and et cetera, et cetera. And my wife set up a booth on basically what in medicine we call alternative medicine. It's not alternative in a bad sense. It's alternative meaning it's not standard taught medicine. And I had a big booth. And people come by, they took pictures of it. And she had all stuff about ivermectin and all the ways to deal with different ways to deal with things than the standard medical. So it's good that they were open enough to let it. Even some of the people from the standard health care part came over and looked at her display.
Well, I remember a time when chiropractic was considered like alternative, and it's now very widely accepted. But there was a time and place where it was not really accepted too, right? Right, and that really goes back to the Rockefellers and Carnegie, I think it was. So somewhere around the 1850s, I think the AMA came into being. And basically, it was sort of like a union for doctors, try to cut other people out of the medicine field. And then they did this, I don't know, it wasn't really a study. It was more like a survey of all the places that did medicine. And it became the standard. And because the Rockefellers pushed for it. And then Rockefellers gave donations to the medical schools. Some medical schools had to close. And part of this agreement was you had to have some people from the foundation put on your board to guide your university if you accepted their money for university, for your medical school. But during that time, they closed down basically all the chiropractic clinics, and they closed down all the homeopathic clinics and all the herbalists, and they all got run out of business, and they had the license taken away from them. And that was at the end of the 1800s, the beginning of the 1900s. Well, somebody was on line one. If you want to call back right quick, I'll put you right on here, get you right on ASAP. So 457-1380. I hope I didn't hang up on you. So that's when medicine got to be standardized. It was a little bit more loose before that. So there were standard and acceptable ways to deal with this and acceptable ways to deal with that. And all of our medicines sort of drifted into becoming products of the petroleum industry. They were made out of petroleum distillates kinds of things, which obviously benefited the Rockefellers who had Standard Oil. And here we go. They're back. Good morning. Welcome to Ask Your Neighbor. Do you have a question for Dr. Ayers?
Okay, Ron, let me turn this radio down. This is really queer, and I don't know if I can explain it to you all. But the latest was talking about the throwing up. Well, here about 4 months ago, Ken started having trouble. We're 86, he's 87, with his hearing. We couldn't hardly hear at all. And then he'd just be sitting somewhere out of the blue and start throwing up and would not stop throwing up. No nausea. Just talk to those ladies. Her mother, it might be something like that. Could not figure it. Went to the doctor. Something to do with the equilibrium. Something like that. They had a name for it. And they gave him antihistamine and nausea medicine. And even to get the nausea medicine down, I couldn't get him to quit throwing up when he would have that spell. Just like a spell. He could just be sitting at the table or sitting in his recliner, and all at once it would just would happen. So they tried to treat him, And the thing is, we did what they said, and it automatically went away. I mean, no spells since 2 or 3 months ago.
Okay.
Something to do with the equilibrium in the ear. Have you ever heard of anything like that? And I'll hang up and let him, maybe, we didn't quite understand what they were trying to explain to us, but it's amazing the stuff that goes on that you have no idea, that the doctors sometimes can't even explain it,
Yes.
Okay, I'll hang up. But he figured it might be the antihistamine that he was, because when he quit taking it seemed to get better. I don't know. Thank you. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Dr. Ayers.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye-bye.
So, it sounds like he has Meniere's disease. But it doesn't sound like what the other lady's having. Meniere's disease is associated with usually hearing loss in one ear, and then loss of equilibrium, and it can give the person almost feeling like they're come off a carnival ride, and their head's all spinny and crazy, and that makes them nauseated. Just like those used to be those rides you go to the carnival and they put you around the ring, and then you start spinning you real fast, and the floor would drop out, and you'd be stuck to the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and people come off that and throw up. Sort of that thing. It's what it sounded like he was having Meniere's disease. And it can come in spells like that, just out of the blue. And would have the hearing loss that she was talking about. So it's an inner ear problem. So your inner ear is what takes the vibrations of somebody's voice or the television or whatever and turns it into electrical signals that the brain can interpret as sound. And also tells you which position your head's in. You know, your head's pointing up, your head's on the side, and if all that gets messed up, and it makes you sick at your stomach, and you can start throwing up. You can use antihistamines. Antihistamines, like Phenergan. Phenergan was a classic drug, probably still used today for nausea. Zofran has taken a lot of that business, but because Phenergan made people sleepy, which was really not a bad thing considering you're throwing up.
Mm-hmm.
But Phenergan is really an antihistamine like Benadryl. So if you're ever out and you're getting sick at your stomach, you're getting nauseated, you can take a couple Benadryl. You'll get really sleepy, but it'll probably squelch the nausea. It's very similar to Phenergan. And it sounds like this thing sort of run its course, and hopefully it won't come back on him. I don't know that it really has a cure per se. So the medication probably tempered the symptoms until it settled down on its own, and hopefully it won't come back. It tends to be a chronic thing, however.
Okay.
So it's a little bit different, I think, than the other person. She never really had nausea or hearing loss.
Okay.
Let's go to, well, I got this letter from Humana. You know, every time I go to pick up medicine at the pharmacy, they give me this list of all the shots I should get. That sort of thing's sort of funny, considering my stand on stuff, but I just nod my head and get out of there. So I don't want to address with the clerk. They don't know. They're just doing what they're told.
Sure.
But basically, they're not worried about your health. They're trying to make money. That's the gist of it. So don't feel like they're caring about you. So I got this letter from Humana, who carries my insurance right now, and they always schedule an annual checkup. Interesting checkups. If you get a checkup from your doctor, it has a certain code, and they can't really diagnose anything. They can't really write you scripts. It's a weird kind of thing. And basically, it's just get information about you. And the preventive screenings, once you've had 2 colon cancer checks and they're negative, say 2 colonoscopies, or you did that thing they send you in the mail and you had a colonoscopy, then later you had the thing, you put your poop in a box and mail it back to them or whatever. The chance you have colon cancer after that, unless you got a strong family history, is pretty low. So I don't know that you need to keep doing those things. Breast cancer, it's a big problem. They backed it down to 40 now. They want you to start getting mammograms every year after age 40. Well, the radiation you get from the shot, from the picture, at some point, it's going to be an issue. Once you get a flu shots, they don't really work. I think even people pro-vaccine realize they don't work. But I don't know why they want you to get all this stuff. I think they're just they think they're going to lower their costs down the road, but you don't have to do all this stuff people tell you to get. You need to decide for yourself what you want to do. A Lancet study. Lancet is like the big magazine from England. There's a British Medical Journal, then there's the Lancet. It's sort of like our New England Journal of Medicine over here. And in August 11th of 2018, they did a study called, here's the title of it, Urinary Sodium Excretion, Blood Pressure, and Cardiovascular Disease and Mortality, a community-level prospective epidemiological cohort study. That's the title.
Okay.
So the World Health Organization right now recommends less than 2 grams of sodium a day to prevent cardiovascular disease. It's never been achieved by any culture, ever. It's too tight. people can't live on 2 grams of sodium, and it's just not enough salt. So the question is salt really bad? That's sort of the question they were trying to answer here. So they went to 18 countries, and they did people 35 to age 70 with no known cardiovascular disease. And then they took their urine sodium in the morning, and that's how they calculated how much sodium they were eating, by how much sodium they were peeing out, and potassium. And they followed them for 8 years. So it's a prospective study. Most studies are retrospective like this. They look back and see what happened. Here they started with a group of people, and they determined how much salt they were eating, and they followed them forward to see what happened to them. That's the best kind of study. So they had 97,767 participants in 369 communities where they followed their blood pressure, and 82,544 people in 255 communities which they followed for the outcome, like what happened to them.
Okay.
So here's what they found out. The overall, so if you want to know how much eating sodium drives your blood pressure up, for every extra gram of sodium you take a day, your top number, your systolic blood pressure goes up 2.8, or about 3.
Oh, wow.
So if it's 150, now it's 153. If it's 120, it's down 123. Hardly anything to get upset about. Maybe you had severe kidney disease or something, but for the average guy, that's not much of a thing. So what they found, if people had 4.43 grams a day, I mean, it recommends under 2, 4.43 grams a day, they had about less than 1 event per 1,000 years. That's what it did. If they were in the middle, like 4.43 to 3.42, or the other way around, at 0.24 events in 1,000 years. Talking about heart attacks. How many heart attacks did they have? In the highest group, who had more than 5 grams of sodium a day, 0.37 events in 1,000 years. So China, they have about 5.58 grams a day in their diet, and they have 0.42 events per 1,000 years. So one thing about the people in the East over there, they have more strokes than we do. They tend to die of strokes, and they tend to die of stomach cancer. It's our differences in diet. But the thing is, it seems like you can still have good health and eat more sodium. Now, you have to separate it. This is going to be complicated. You have to separate sodium from salt, okay? Because somebody will say a 2-gram sodium diet, and somebody might say a 4-gram salt diet, and it's sort of like saying the same thing, because half of salt is sodium. But just calculating the amount of sodium in your diet, not the sodium chloride in your diet, I think we can be a little bit more liberal with that. If you have critical high blood pressure, you end up in the hospital having to get all kinds of medicine, you should probably try to stay tight on it. But if you're the average person, you can probably be a little bit more liberal with your salt. Now let's talk about salt. Somewhere along the way, we took all the good stuff out of salt. Then we added back iodine, in theory, to keep people from getting goiters. In the South, where we're at right now, and over in Georgia and all the area, there are things called goitrogens, and there's not a lot of iodine in the dirt. So if you eat the vegetables from the garden, you're not getting really enough iodine. Now, if you ate fish and some other stuff, you would, but if you just ate what out of your garden, you might get a goiter. Most goiters today, which is a swollen thyroid gland in your neck, are caused by an autoimmune condition where the body attacked the gland, and the gland tried to get bigger to make more thyroid. But in the old days, people would get goiters, really big ones, just look it up, started at your chin, go clear out of their collarbones, big things on their neck, and it was from not having enough iodine in the dirt. But now, if you get regular salt, like they may call it Himalayan salt, so if you went to the ocean and you boiled the water down and took the remains of salt, used it on your food, it wouldn't be just sodium chloride. It'd be a whole mixture of minerals, magnesium and all kinds of other stuff in there that your body needs. So I'm recommending that's the kind of salt you use. A couple things happen there. One, because there are other minerals in there, your body gets needs met that it's not getting met with table salt. And 2, there's less sodium in it because there's all those other minerals. So you're getting less sodium, if that's a worry for you, than you're getting with regular salt. So a pinch of Himalayan salt's got less sodium in it than a pinch of, Morton's table salt. So get that kind of salt. Like I said, we use Himalayan salt at the house. It's sort of pinky colored. And you're getting other minerals your body needs, and you're getting less sodium. But it seems like, I think one thing they found in the study, the best health was in people that had about 5 grams of sodium a day. They lived longer than all of us other people in the rest of the world trying to cut down the sodium out of our diet. Yale study from the University of Yale. This is the name of their study. Immunological and antigenic signatures associated with chronic illness after COVID-19 vaccination. Okay. You see what guys have to read to do this show? Wow. They read these stupid articles.
Okay.
This is from 2/18/1925, or 2025 this year. It's a preprint, so it's not been peer reviewed yet. But it's fascinating. This deals with COVID. They were trying to find out people that got sick after they had the COVID shot, and they're still sick. What was about them? What was happening to these people? And it's called post-vaccination syndrome, or PVS. They had 42 people with that, and they had 22 people used as a control. And they found several things about these people. One, they had decreased circulating memory and effectiveness of their CD4 T cells. Now, if you remember AIDS, they have low CD4 counts. So here the CD4s aren't working well. And T cells are really your killer cells for your immune system. So they're not working well. 2, they had increased tumor necrosis factor, alpha, and CD8 T cells. 3, they had lower anti-spike antibody titers. They think it's because they didn't get all the vaccines, but that's not really true. So they had lower antibodies, the kind of antibodies you're trying to get by taking the COVID shot. They didn't have as much as other people. They had serological evidence of having a recent Epstein-Barr virus infection. So remember, Epstein-Barr virus is in that group of viruses that once it gets in your body, it stays there forever. Sort of like chickenpox. So chickenpox, so later it comes out as shingles. Epstein-Barr causes mono, but it can get re-flared up again. Cytomegalovirus is also in that group. Herpes is in that group. You know, herpes, you don't get rid of it, really. It sort of keeps coming back. It goes, hides in your body and comes back out. So they showed evidence that, and that what that means is their immune system wasn't keeping it in check. Your body's immune system keeps the herpes tucked away. When you get stressed or a cold, that's why they call it a cold sore, your immune system gets stressed and it comes back out. So do these other viruses that aren't quite so obvious. They had increased levels of circulating spike protein. Now that's fascinating compared to healthy controls. Some people showed that their levels of the spike protein increased over time. So they had more spike protein now in their blood than they did right after they got the shot. I mean, that's what the shot was supposed to do. It's supposed to tell your cells to make spike protein, and then your body would recognize spike protein as foreign, and then you'd have immunity. But in some people, it didn't know to turn it off. So they kept
still doing it.
It's still doing it 3-4 years out. And so they had significant immune problems. And then some people call it VAIDS, vaccine-associated immunodeficiency syndrome. And that's a problem. That's a big problem. And these people aren't well, and they catch stuff easy. And we don't know what the end result's going to be with them. We predicted this before the shot came out, that this was a potential problem. So Yale now has verified what happens to these people. And the reason I said they were wrong about the reason they had lower anti-spike antibodies, they said was due to less vaccines. They stopped taking after they felt bad. But you can't say at the same time and say they got more circulating spike protein in their blood. Because they got more spike protein in their blood, they should have all kinds of antibodies. But they don't. And we talked about this earlier. In 2022, the death rates in people 18 to 64 went way up. Some people thought it was due to the COVID. Some people think it's due to the COVID shot. But 40%. So people in the working category, 18, you start getting your first job, 64, when you're about ready to retire. 40% increase in death rate. So listen to this. A 1 in 200-year catastrophe would drive the death rate in that age group up 10%. We're talking about 40% after COVID.
Wow.
And you can argue whether it was due to the COVID itself or due to the COVID shot. Or interesting, but that other study the one from Yale. The first line in the study is, COVID-19 vaccines have prevented millions of COVID-19 deaths. Yet, some people got this syndrome. But how do they know it prevented millions of deaths? They don't know that. It's unusual for a study to start with some preposterous statement like that. That's the accepted that it prevented like 10 million deaths around the world. But there's no proof of that. They just picked that number out of the air. Okay, number 7. Now, first off, I'll say these medicines work, okay? Because I know there's a way to go weight loss that advertises here, and they use these medicines, and they're effective. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is how they were made. So listen to this. U.S. taxpayers, we paid $6.2 billion to develop these medicines, which are then sort of given over to these drug companies, particularly Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk. And they make billions of dollars a year off of these drugs. And yet we sort of paid, it was you and me that paid for their development. Do we get a break? No. Americans pay 11 times more for these drugs than any other country. And we paid, it's out of our pocket to develop the drug. You think we get a break, wouldn't you? So, I don't know how funding these escapades by pharmaceutical companies, I don't think they need our money. I'm sure they like getting it.
Yeah.
But it seems like you should be getting a break on the cost. Like when I went to India, this is a long time ago, about 1999, and we took $150. We bought out a whole pharmacy. We bought everything they had. It wasn't a giant pharmacy, but we bought everything they had. They could close for the day. And then we took it and used it in a little bit of mission work we were doing.
Remember, guys, if you've got calls, questions, 865-457-1380 or 877-711-4005. And we'll stop and answer your questions and give you whatever information that we have. 457-1380. What else do you have for us?
Oh, I'll be sure to tell me some stuff.
Okay.
So GoodRx, I use GoodRx on some of my stuff.
Yeah.
In spite of the fact I got insurance, GoodRx, sometimes the prices is better. And it's free. I mean, I'm sure drug companies are paying for it somehow, but so you look GoodRx, and I know they advertise on TV some. And some of my medicines are a lot cheaper using GoodRx than it is to use your insurance, even if you got Medicare. Some people like to use alkaline spring water for heartburn. Those things work temporarily. I mean, it'd be like taking sodium bicarb, was what people used to do for heartburn, because it's a base. You got acid in your stomach. You can take base and sort of neutralize it, but you can have effects of that. Alkaline water should work briefly, at least, to help heartburn. Okay. So microplastics. It used to be we got things in glass, and now we get things in plastic, like my water bottle here. What you don't realize is that they're little itsy bitsy tiny pieces of plastic that come off when you drink. So we all have plastic in our lungs. The people who wore masks during COVID, like they were told to, they have all kinds of this in their lungs, because those masks are made of plastic, and you breathe through there and you're sucking that plastic down your lungs. But I heard people say a lot of the biopsies they do in lungs these days, they have plastic in them, microplastics, and you're swallowing it. And the trouble is, E. coli, which is a naturally occurring bacteria in your intestine, but there are some bad strains of it where people get really sick. Sometimes you'll see a vegetable recall because they had E. coli on it, because it's in poop, basically. And somebody had a bad strain of it in their poop. And in some places in the world, they use poop to fertilize their garden. I don't recommend that. Do not put human poop in your compost pile or in your garden, because humans get diseases from humans, so it's just a bad thing. But when E. coli get with microplastics, then the antibiotics don't want to work anymore. It makes them 5 times more resistant to antibiotics than they were already. And a lot of plastics. We need to go back to glass and get rid of plastics. I mean, there's some uses for plastic, but maybe not in food products. or in our air and breathe them in. A Slovakian study. This is interesting, sort of. He looked at 34 batches of the Pfizer Moderna COVID thing. Okay. It's proper storage, under temperature, like it's supposed to be. And we've already talked before on the show how a lot of it had DNA in it as well as the modified RNA. They used the DNA to make the RNA, but they didn't get the DNA out. There's certain standards for how much DNA is allowed in a shot, and there's too much. In some cases, these vials, there was more DNA than there was RNA. Now, the trouble with DNA, it can get incorporated into your DNA a lot easier than mRNA can. The mRNA has to go through a thing called reverse transcriptase to rewrite it backwards and then put it together and stick it in your DNA. And that does happen somewhat. But, and the harm of that would be you'd be still making spike protein, like maybe forever. So, but the DNA gets incorporated into your DNA much easier. And he's saying that many people who have taken the shot, they are technically a GMO now. They're technically a genetically modified organism.
Oh, wow.
Which has repercussions, it can have repercussions, because it's almost like you can be owned, as it were. You know, you can't patent something that occurs in nature. So you couldn't patent milk or, you know, it has to be modified or a novel thing to get patented. And so I guess you can patent people now because they've got this DNA in their bodies. Don't know what they're going to do with that. He wrote a letter to Kennedy, I think, tell him that. He said technically there's another way you can look at it. Now, that's something you can do. This shows you where community efforts pay off. Hawaii was trying to pass a bill to stop all vaccine exemptions. And meaning that if your kid was going to go to school or if you're going to get a job here, you had to take these vaccines. It didn't matter what you thought about it personally. It didn't matter what you thought about it religiously. And, you know, in West Virginia, it had no exemptions actually for school. And it looks like when they stopped it, because about 2-3 months ago, we said West Virginia now had exemptions for religious things on vaccines. Evidently, that was an executive order from the governor, and now the Senate has overruled it. And then we're back to no exemptions in West Virginia. But the public came up and pushed back against them trying to pass this bill, and it died. They didn't get passed. So your complaining to your elected representatives can pay off. You get enough people to say, we want exemptions from the vaccines. This is straight from the CDC. Measles deaths declined by 98% before the introduction of the vaccine in 1963.
Okay.
So you can look that up yourself on the CDC website. And we talked about...
So it was already on the downside.
Oh, way down. It was almost gone.
Okay.
And that, so starting back around 1900, we got indoor plumbing, we got city water, we got refrigeration started to come into houses. So there's less spoiled food and milk and stuff. People were eating better quality food. And refrigeration cars let food be delivered from, the south of the United States up to the north during the winter. All those reasons made all diseases go down. All the infectious diseases precipitously started to fall off around 1900. And then they came up with a vaccine in 63 for measles, mumps, and rubella, and it was gone. But if you go to medical school, they'll teach you that the vaccine made it go away, when it didn't. It was gone already. But they took credit. The last 2%, it kept going away, and who knows if even without the vaccine if it had gone away. But all the diseases are like that. You can look at a graph, it's got all of them, from diphtheria, they all were going away. It's just more an improvement in public health than it was a vaccine.
Okay.
Just so we could talk about what a vaccine is, here's the theory. they'll take part of a germ, or they'll kill the germ and take its dead body, and they'll shoot that into your body. So you're getting a dead virus or whatever, bacteria shot into your body, and your body recognizes that as foreign, and then tries to make antibodies to it. So the next time it sees it, it will attack it. That's the theory. So you can see how the mRNA is not a vaccine. mRNA, they injected you with something that told your body to make the part of the dead thing. That's totally different. And but do they really work? I think we don't really know the answer to that question. It's just, it's taboo in medicine. They didn't even talk about it. It's almost a religious experience for these doctors. You can't, because I have good friends that are good doctors, good Christian people, and yet you mention vaccines and maybe not being all they're cracked up to be. It's like they lose their mind. It's weird. I mean, I'm surprised I still have a physician, because they ask me if I want to take a shot. No, I'm not going to take the shot. Interesting. Remember, if you know what DARPA is, that's a Defense Advanced Research Project, something or the other. So they get a lot of money, and they come up with futuristic things like anti-gravity, which, believe it or not, they actually come up with.
Mm-hmm.
They can make things float and go around. And they can mess with you. So before we see something like what's the Grok and Thoth, I think is one, or Toth, or however they say that, and these artificial intelligences, you can ask questions on your phone. You see people ask them these long, drawn-out questions. And then what this thing does, it's artificial intelligence. It goes to the literature. It looks all this stuff up. It does in a matter of seconds. And then starts telling you answer to your question. Write your paper on, James Fenimore Cooper. Or it can do all that really fast. So what we see right now is a little sprinkle of what artificial intelligence can actually do. Like artificial intelligence right now runs the IRS. Artificial intelligence is what Ukraine has used against Russia. That's the only way they've been able to have any sort of a fight against them. They got a machine calling the shots. So what we see now are toys, basically. The ones you get on your phone to ask questions, those are toys compared to what DARPA actually has. So stuff has been produced usually 30 years before. So that means we've had artificial intelligence of that degree, if not more, since mid-1990s. So in 1995, they came up with the Wireless Body Area Network, or WBAN. You can look that up online. It's just like sounds like a radio station, WBAN, all capital letters. Wireless Body Area Network. Meaning that they can use your body as a signal reproducer, or they can communicate with it. Because, the whole world's sort of electrical. We have an ionosphere that this radio station uses to bounce signals off of to send places. Your tower out here sends it up, bang. That's why at night it goes further, or you have to turn it down in the summer, I think.
Yep.
Turn your power down, because otherwise it'd go really far away.
Yep.
So that's electric. The Earth's electric. It's that electricity up there that protects us when you see these plasma ejections from the sun and they coming at the Earth. What protects us is the ionosphere. And that makes the aurora borealis, your northern lights, or aurora australis if you're down the southern hemisphere. And you can see them. I can see in West Virginia here back in the summer, last May I think it was. Took pictures of it. So that's electrical. You're electrical. The Earth actually has a frequency called a Schumann frequency, and you have frequencies in your brain. They can look at just your brain and tell when you're sleeping, with the electrical signals it's putting out on an EEG, electroencephalogram, or electrocardiogram, or if you ever got shocked or your muscles contract, because your muscles are electric, you are an electric thing. Well, DARPA has learned how to manipulate your electricity back around 1995. And by 2005, they had these biosensors that are used. And then in 2007, they had digital architecture developed. So they can manipulate you. And the question is, how much are they manipulating you? Like in cities, they put up these Wi-Fi, 5G things very close together. And it can go a lot further. You can drive down the interstate and see how far a tower can shoot. But in cities, they'll put them closer, and they can manipulate you because they know what the brain looks like when it's stressed. They know what kind of output the brain has. Like I say, they're going to tell when it's sleeping. They can tell when it's dreaming. They can tell when you're scared. They can tell when you're happy. And they can induce all these things in your brain from a long way off. So if they want to tear in a city, they could shoot certain frequencies into the city, and people would be scared. They might not even know what they were scared of. They'd just be anxious all of a sudden. And then they use your body sometimes to pass a signal on without your permission. It can't be for very long. They have to go through because your body heats up when they do it. But nobody asked our permission to do this stuff. That's the problem. And they're doing it.
They just do it.
They just do it. And somehow we got to stop this. So people in their houses right now, you have IoT, Internet of Things. So your refrigerator, it talks to your thermostat on the wall, your dryer, all these things. If you got new appliances,
communicate.
And your light bulbs, and you tell Alexa to turn on your light bulbs. How does she tell it to turn on? She's not flipping the switch. So it's all done through this Internet of Things. But it also can track you. Your TV, you can see your TV, but your TV can see you. It's what you don't know. It has the ability to see you. Your Wi-Fi can tell where you are in the house, what position your body's in, whether you're crouching down or standing up. So we have no privacy anymore. And that's a problem. Some people are okay with it. Say, I'm not doing anything. I don't care. But yeah, they know way too much about you. And digital twin, that's the thing that came out in 2007. Digital twins. See, all of you listen to this, you have a digital twin. I mean, they have made somebody like you that's digital. And they can, if they want to know what you're going to do, they can ask that thing and present it the same circumstances. And it will do exactly what you're going to do. We all have a digital twin right now. So electronically, the electronics have surpassed our ability to even track what they're doing. It's sort of like this. In California, one of the things they like to do is they come up with these boutique drugs. And what's boutique? In the South, they call it boutique. These boutique drugs. And so let's say it's illegal to take some over-the-counter narcotic, without a prescription. So what they do is they come up with a drug that's sort of like it, but it's got some additional things stuck on the side, and you take that. Well, there's no laws on that drug because it just didn't exist a few minutes ago. So until the law catches up with it, it's out there being passed around. Well, they're doing this with electronics. There aren't laws for this stuff. Until we push the laws to control these people doing these things, it's going to run free. It's not going to be illegal because there's no laws that even address it. So now Georgia has now submitted legislation requiring paper ballots to be hand marked and hand counted. Why is that? It's because people pushed for that. They pushed for that. And we had to push for this other stuff. And most people don't even know that it exists.
Yeah.
So, but two more things. I'll quit here.
Okay.
Chicken egg yolk antibodies block the binding of multiple SARS-2 spike proteins to the angiotensin converting enzyme sites. That means the virus can't attach. Something in chicken yolk keeps the virus from attaching to your body. So now what do we have? We have no chicken eggs. People can't afford chicken eggs now because they're killing chickens. Why are they killing chickens? It doesn't make any sense. If you remember back during the middle of COVID, I'm going to say it 100 times in this show that test, that PCR test, is worthless. And that's what they test, stick a thing up your nose to check for.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that invented it, Kerry Mullis, he said you can't use that test to check for any disease. It's not made for that. But that's what they go. The chickens, they go to this farmer's got 10 million chickens, and they test one chicken and he came up positive. Well, it's probably false positive because the chicken wasn't sick. So what they do, they kill every chicken on the whole place. Does that help? No, it doesn't help at all. It helps nothing. It helps the price of eggs to go up. It helps the price of chicken to go up. So then you can't eat eggs, and these eggs are protecting you from getting sick. And last thing is bee colonies. I think from June last year, 62% of the colonies from commercial beekeepers died. They call it colony collapse.
Really?
They don't know why. But bees are very sensitive to this Wi-Fi. Very sensitive. That's how they know. You heard somebody make a beeline. How does the bee know the straight line back to where it came from? Well, it's got sensors in the earth. Same with birds, how they migrate. They got sensors for where they're at on the earth. But this Wi-Fi messes with them. So I recommend at night when you go to bed, turn your Wi-Fi off. Don't have your phone anywhere near your body. Take it far away, plug it into charge overnight, and far side of the house. Don't sleep. Most of you sleep with your phone within 3 feet of your body, and hardly leaves your body all day long. And it's not good for you. I mean, how much radiation is safe? None. We've accepted as a culture that we're going to take the risk of carrying this little box around with us, in spite of the fact that it's not doing our health any good. Yeah, it's not safe. It's not safe. But yet now it's so ingrained in the culture, I don't think we could get rid of it.
No. Thank you for your questions today, folks. We had quite a few of them. Remember, Dr. David will be back here next month, the first Tuesday of the month. And we'll do this all again. In the meantime, if you'd like to ask a question or like to send me a question, we'll write it down and have it for him when he gets back here next month. Or you can look on Facebook. What do they need to look up on Facebook, Doc?
I think it's Dr. David Ayers.
Okay. There you go. Look it up. You can find him and ask questions then. Until then, anything else?
All talked out.
Okay. Well, we've had a lot. It's been a busy show today.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Hang on here. We're going to wrap things up, get you in some great classic hit country music. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to AM 1380 WYSH and Ask Your Neighbor. Make sure you tune in at 10 a.m. each day, Monday through Friday, right here on AM 1380 WYSH and BBB TV 12. Or listen live online at WYSHradio.com. And remember, if you have a question, comment, or problem, call in tomorrow and ask your neighbor. Or email from our website. It's Ask Your Neighbor. Thanks for listening.